What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Ryan Pineda Show, where we talk all things money, real estate, and entrepreneurship. And in today's video, I'm going to show you step by step how to do a real estate transaction. So if this is your first time at this channel, welcome. My name is Ryan Pineda. I've done over 400 deals in the last 6 years. The majority of those are fix and flip and wholesale deals, but I actually also used to be a realtor as well. Now I love teaching people how to flip real estate, how to wholesale real estate, how to find good deals. I love teaching all that stuff. But one thing that I don't really talk about much are the basics. The basics of how a transaction will work. And I think it's one of those things where people never get started because they might be intimidated by the basics. And I'm here to tell you, like, the basics aren't that hard. They're much easier than you think. So the goal of this video is to really show somebody how easy the transaction is, especially if they're a beginner and they've never done a deal. Now, if you have done deals before, you're experienced, you might think this video is really repetitive or really dumb. But I'm here to tell you this: if you can learn to explain a transaction very simply, it will help you get more deals. You'll be able to get more clients. You'll be able to help people find you more deals. The possibilities are endless. So I think this video will have value for anyone, whether it be a newbie, which it's mainly geared towards, or somebody who's already done deals. So let's talk about the transaction itself. What is the very first thing that happens? Well, very first thing that happens is someone makes an offer. Doesn't matter which one you are. You might be trying to sell your house. You might be trying to buy a house. Somebody's got to make an offer. Now, an offer does not have to be on paper. I can go verbally make an offer to a seller. We do this a lot, in fact. Most of the offers we make are verbal. The only time we actually write an offer is once we know that we're close on a deal. We've already verbally communicated, so we want to write the offer up. Now, if you're looking on the market, your real estate agent will be the one writing the offer up. Now, if you're off market and going direct to seller, you are going to be the one making the offer. And if you're sitting there like, I don't know how to make an offer, where do I even get a contract? How do I understand it? I've got good news. I've already made a YouTube video on exactly that. I'll link to it in the description below. I actually give you the same exact contract that I use completely for free. Just got to download it at futureflipper.com, and I go over how to use it in the video. So make sure you go watch that one after this one. Now here's the thing with offers. Most of them don't get accepted right away. There's typically back and forth, there's negotiations, there's counter offers, but eventually, you'll come to an agreement. So after the offer finally gets accepted, the buyer's gonna put down what's called an earnest money deposit. The earnest money deposit is given to the title company. It's not given to the seller. And it's gonna actually count towards the buyer's purchase. And the whole point of the earnest money deposit is for the buyer to show good faith and have skin in the game. By them putting a deposit down, it's showing that they are going to take action and proceed with this deal. Think about it. Would you be confident selling your home if the buyer didn't have anything to lose backing out? This earnest money deposit is what they're putting up and willing to lose if they don't perform on the deal. Meaning, if they don't perform and do exactly what the contract says. Now, after they put their earnest money deposit down, they're gonna have what's called due diligence. This is also defined in the contract. And the due diligence period is usually 7 to 10 days for most MLS deals. And this is the buyer's time to go get inspections, to get contractor bids, and to really figure out whether they're gonna buy the property or not. And this is a big fear for a lot of people because they'll say, Ryan, if I put the earnest money deposit down and then I find out it needs more work and it's a bad deal, am I gonna lose the earnest money deposit? And the answer is no. As long as you back out within the due diligence period, you're gonna get that earnest money deposit back. And so you gotta make sure during this period, you are certain you wanna buy this deal. And so it's the buyer's responsibility to pay for their inspections and to do all of the due diligence. From there, they're gonna decide whether they wanna stay in the deal, whether they wanna renegotiate the deal, or whether they wanna back out. During the due diligence period, a lot of things can happen. The buyer's gonna decide whether they just wanna stay in the deal, nothing's gonna change, whether they want some things repaired by the seller, whether they want to back out of the deal, or whether they just want to renegotiate the deal and get a lower price. I've seen all of those things happen depending on what the contractor's bid or the inspection came back as. If it ends up needing a lot more work than they thought, and they decide they want a lower price, the seller's gonna have to figure out, do I want to give them a lower price? Do I want to try and negotiate and meet them in the middle? Or do I just want to deny the lower price and say, hey, honor what you're gonna give me or just back out? There's a lot of negotiation that goes on during the due diligence period, but for the most part, most buyers on the MLS are gonna end up asking for a repair request. They're gonna go to the seller and say, hey, this is broke, fix these things, or I don't wanna do the deal. Even for us as we flip, we get repair requests all the time because no matter how nice we fix something up, when a house is 50 years old, there's always things wrong with it. So some buyers understand that and they don't request a lot. Other buyers are unreasonable, and sometimes as sellers, we gotta say, no, we're not fixing that. It's a 50-year-old house, what do you expect? It's really just a whole nother round of negotiations. Now, assuming that the buyer and seller agree to whatever terms in the due diligence period, it's now gonna go to the appraisal. And typically the buyer's gonna pay for the appraiser. The appraiser is gonna go out for the buyer's loan just to verify that the property is worth what the buyer's paying. If the buyer's paying $300,000 for the property, the bank who is giving them the loan wants to make sure that this property's worth $300,000, that they're not paying $300,000 for a house that's worth $200,000. The bank is not gonna approve that deal because they know the buyer is gonna end up in a bad situation. So two things can happen during the appraisal period. Number one, it appraises for or above what the buyer's paying. In that case, it's great, there's no issues. Or number two, it appraises less, or they demand that the seller fix some things for the appraisal. So if the seller has to fix things, that's one thing, it is what it is. That's the only way they're gonna give the loan. So if the seller wants to do the deal, they're gonna have to fix it. But if it appraises less, something is gonna happen between the buyer and seller. They're gonna have to negotiate for who's coming up with the difference. If they were in contract for $300,000 and it appraised for $290,000, there's a $10,000 gap that's gotta be filled. So the buyer might argue, well, it's only worth $290,000, that's all I'm gonna pay. If you still wanna sell it, you gotta sell it to me at this price. Seller might argue, well, you agreed to pay $300,000, that's a bad appraisal, which it might be. And if you wanna buy this property, you're gonna have to come $10,000 out of pocket to cover the difference. Or they might come together and say, you know what, let's split the difference. You come out of pocket $5,000, you lose $5,000. We'll set the price at $295,000 and call it a day. I've seen it happen multiple ways. It's really gonna depend on the situation and each buyer and seller. There are some buyers who literally have no money to cover the difference. And so as a seller, you gotta decide, do I just want to do this deal or not? Because they don't have the money to do the deal otherwise. You can also contest the appraisal, and we've had some success with that as well, but don't count on that working. Now, after you figure out the appraisal stuff, next thing up is the loan approval. Even though the buyer may have a good appraisal, they're good with inspections, they still have to get approved for their loan. And during this time, whoever's been doing the loan has been getting financial documents from the buyer. They've been running credit, they're getting pay stubs, they're making sure that the buyer is qualified to buy this home. And they're gonna give a final approval. They're gonna say either yes or no. Now, typically, a buyer would get pre-approved beforehand, so they should already know that, hey, I can afford this home, I'm good. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. Sometimes they did a bad job pre-approving them. Sometimes the buyer's situation changed while they're under contract. I actually had it one time where a buyer got a car loan while they were trying to buy a home, and that screwed up all of their ratios and they couldn't qualify for the home. And it was really stupid, and I, as the seller, got penalized for it because the buyer still had a loan contingency. Basically, the contingency said, if they can't get approved for a loan, they don't lose their earnest money deposit. And so I had to give them back their earnest money deposit even though they made a stupid decision. That's why it's important to read your contracts. Now, assuming the loan goes through, the last step is the final walkthrough. The buyer is going to do a final walkthrough at the property and make sure it's in the same condition that it was when they first went under contract. Make sure everything's on the up and up. They're also gonna make sure that you've done any repair requests that you agreed to as the seller. So if they requested that you fix a faucet, that faucet needs to be fixed once they do their final walkthrough. Once the final walkthrough is done, they are now gonna go to the closing table at the title company. They're gonna sign all their final documents. They're gonna send their down payment. The lender's gonna send the rest of the money. The seller's gonna sign their documents. Once everyone has done what they're supposed to do, title company's gonna work their magic, and then they're gonna distribute everything to where they should be. Seller's gonna get their money, buyer's gonna get the home, the lender is now gonna have a new loan to this buyer. And that's it. The property is closed and the deal is done. So that's how a real estate transaction works. It's not as hard as people think it is. You don't need a realtor to do it. You don't have to be licensed to do it. And as I said, if you need a contract, definitely click the link below and go to futureflipper.com. Over there, we've got my online course teaching you how to find great deals, how to renovate properties, how to sell them for top dollar. You can also apply to be coached directly by me if you want to learn how to flip real estate. But other than that, I hope you got a lot of value out of this video. If you did, do me a big favor, go hit the like button. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Go follow me on all the socials. Until next time, take care.